Good morning, Bui. How are you?
Well, thanks. And yourself, Toli?
I'm well. Thank you for asking. So, how's your morning been?
My morning has been fantastic. I'm
Uh-huh.
so glad we're entering into spring. So,
Definitely.
color is coming back in terms of nature, reminding us of newness, of a budding
Yes.
newness. So,
Yes.
I'm one person who's highly connected to the nature that surrounds me. So, I'm quite excited
Yeah.
for spring, and I really
Yeah.
hope that we're entering into a phase and season of our lives where it's slightly better. There's a bit more resolve, absolutely.
And then, true to form with the new season, I think, as we're going into lower levels of lockdown and us going back to life as we knew it before lockdown, which is different,
Mm-hmm.
but it just comes with adapting and opening your mind up to just adjusting to the new way of life, because I think a lot of things have changed with this new normal.
Yeah, that's certainly true. And, with everything kind of lessening down, with everyone kind of coming out at this point, mental health is also something that we're seeing
Yeah.
a significant shift in terms of a lot of emotions coming to the surface because of everything that we've had to kind of push down, trying to
Definitely.
survive this pandemic, and maintain our livelihood. So now with things going back to some kind of normalcy, the psyche and just how fractured and compromised it is coming up to the surface.
Yeah, and I think more than anything, we need to be cognizant that, you may not be mentally ill or you may not have an awareness of mental illness, but the people around you, for an example, are struggling. So I think more than anything, the ability to have an understanding of the signs of someone that has mental illness or that is depressed or, needs counsel of some sort. I think it's now's the time that we have to, educate ourselves with, some of these practices or methodologies or approaches that are sustainable to, mental wellness.
Yeah,
Right. So
absolutely.
without further ado, Ms. Risila, we're going to go into, the topic for today. As you know by now, the theme of the segment is getting down to the root, and that's understanding Black mental health. And last week we spoke about Black mental health. Where are we now with Ms. Kanyisile? So now we are talking about Black mental health in the Black community / Black mental health. Where are we now? Part 2. And this is now where we'll be discussing, the Black mental illness amongst Black people living in capitalism. I think, capitalism is such a prevailing reality. It's so large and has a lot of causes and effects. So it will be very interesting to just get insights from you. We're going to explore the myths and the misconceptions of mental health rather in Black communities, and discuss the different class contexts and how they impact Black people's understanding of mental health and what ill is in the context of Black mental health. So without further ado, would you maybe let us know what you think about that?
Sure. So in terms of just the subject as a point of discussion, I think mental health in our lifetime has found varied forms of expression in Africa as well as globally. The way in which we've come to understand and realize the need for mental health awareness, the need for mental health intervention depends, of course, with the sector of society that we are speaking to. But in terms of just coming down to Black mental health in our communities, I'm going to kind of bring it into the African understanding, of course, of what it means to exist with a mental health challenge, and how do you then navigate the spaces and the community as such. So, of course, the first part that you speak about is capitalism as a system. We know that we are a community that is profit driven. We know that money is the currency that gets us to move into certain spaces, that gets us to shift our social class as well. And the idea of psychology or seeing a therapist being quite expensive has been one of the things that has kind of become a point of debate or a point of conversation within our communities, because now with many people starting to realize the importance of therapy and the importance of going to see a psychologist or a counselor, the conversation that soon follows that is affordability. It's okay, now that you're saying that I have understood and sought insight around my mental health issue, how do I get access? And I come to you and I place the price of what it is to enter into a healing space. And for many, of course, it becomes exclusionary in that regard, because it's one of those things where first and foremost there needs to be a consistency that is established, and with the amount of money that you need to put forth to start engaging with the therapeutic process, you do find that that is the first barrier when we are looking at how mental health awareness and intervention is received in our Black communities.
And on that note, would you attribute our upbringing, or rather what we are, how we are socialized, how we are indoctrined into certain things? For an example, the westernized approach to psychology as Africans, right? If it's systematic, for example, it's something that you are exposed to, and I'm a firm believer that as a person you function according to your exposure. So would you say that our approach to mental wellness and health and finding all these barriers as Africans especially, would you think the way we are socialized attributes to our attitude and our approach to mental wellness? Or do you think that it's just within us as Africans not to take mental wellness and seeing a psychologist as something important and something to be prioritized?
I'll reach into a conversation that you had earlier with one of my colleagues, Buledi, when she explained how the process of healing has existed with people of African ancestry and in Black communities. The understanding of mental health and its challenges has always been a collective understanding. It's always been a communal understanding. So there hasn't been a disregard for any kind of life challenge or stress and anxiety. It has found different meanings, and we know that, of course, in terms of how we then interact with healing, is that we often do it in a communal sense, in a collective sense, where we'd have someone in the family maybe come and sit us down and mediate to kind of get to a point where we can all understand how to better exist with each other. Now, when we look at therapy and the process of therapy, is that it takes an individual focus, right, at its core and its primary expression. We know that we can enter into couples therapy, into family therapy, but in many African scripts, family therapy is not necessarily something that is common. We can see the rise of couples therapy, with couples realizing that we need someone to kind of guide us through. So the way in which we've been socialized has always been that the matters of the home are resolved in the home, that there is a voice of authority that will give that kind of guidance, and all we have to do as the people who are in turmoil is to follow that guide of authority. There wasn't any kind of dialogue, exchange, critical thinking and insight building that we kind of found in the way in which we existed as a community trying to work through mental health challenges. Wow. So when we start to now move into therapy as an individualized process, there's a curiosity that starts to form to say, what are you saying in my absence about me? right? How are you constructing me and the way in which I have facilitated this home environment in my absence? So we find that a lot of the times there's a resistance towards what counseling would look like or what therapy would look like because of this sense of you are letting in a complete stranger and you are telling them your part or your narrative of the broader experience. We're not there to confirm or deny. So when we start to look at those social constructions around how we deal with mental health, there's a preference at times for us to still keep it to our traditional, or rather how it has always existed, to say there's always that voice of authority who would then impose how best to resolve, advice giving, right? But what we're saying about mental health is that even that has found its own limitations, which is why many people are not satisfied by what happens in the home in terms of what intervention would look like, that they then would like to seek a neutral voice, a voice that does not have insight on the family history, where we'll be able to be guided in some part with understanding what your history is, but we'll also be guided by with what you're feeling, how you're understanding your mental health challenge, and how you're understanding how you place it around certain significant events, milestones, or other members of your family or social circle.
All right, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much, for that insight. I just want to touch on something that you spoke about, which I think is quite important, about the rise in couples therapy and there not really being enough, for example, family therapy. And it takes me back to a few South African shows that play on DSTV, and they are called, the one show is called Please Step In, the other one is called Riatsotella, and it's South African shows, and it's based on solving family drama or disputes. I suppose you write into the show explaining what your challenges, you're seeking help. I know Please Step In, the presenter, I believe she's a psychologist, counseling or clinical, I'm not too certain. And it's a platform, a TV platform whereby people talk about family issues. You see family challenges that are broadcasted and spoken very candidly and openly. And there are a lot of reviews and mixed reviews about all of that, adding to the fact that some situations escalate and it's dramatic and it's what. But what I like about it is the shift in our approach to our issues, especially as Black people, because I'm of the belief that some of the trauma we've experienced has taught us not to communicate well with each other and all of that. So I don't know, people speak badly about it. Like when I say people, I'll say the Black community, Africans, they'll have, bad things to say or good things to say. But the thing is, numbers don't lie. And if something has season 1, season 2, season 3, it means the ratings are there. So it's interesting to see the inclination of people leaning towards, such shows because it's engaging. But now in real life, we don't have, family therapy. It's more so couples therapy, as if, we perhaps emphasize more on the romantic relationship, not understanding that even with family, that's a relationship and needs to be nurtured, and mental wellness, I feel, needs to be the goal, even in that context.
Yeah. So just speaking on that, again, it ties into financial, or currency access to therapy in itself. So shows like that start to create they start to create discussion. They start to create and build a bit of awareness and insight around some of the key mental health challenges that you would find in dynamics like couple dynamics or in family dynamics as well.
Yeah.
So it also serves the role and the purpose to start to challenge the way in which families understand collective mental health and collective. So, as you were talking about TV shows, I remember on Twitter the other day, there was a hashtag that was going around family therapy in Black homes. And it was this understanding of wanting to remove, or rather parents removing themselves from their children's mental health challenges, feeling like the children have their mental health is their sole responsibility, not understanding that their children exist in systems, right? And they exist in systems that have been either good enough for them to progress, or they have been a hindrance, and they have been a bit of the kind of sore point that has led to the adult experience being a little bit more troubled or unsafe, etc. So
that's such a valid point that you have just phrased, because and sorry to interrupt you, but it also takes me back to a post I saw speaking on social media, whereby, okay, this wasn't an African, it was an American mom that posted on Instagram or Twitter, I'm not sure, but I saw this on Instagram, and she said that she was taking her child to school, to middle school, and the child on the way to school broke down, cried, was just not having it, unprovoked. And her tweet or comment to that was, you know what, my child experienced the first mental breakdown, don't worry, we're going to Walmart and watching movies all day, no school. And that was such an interesting approach to how to deal with the child's breakdown, whereas I feel like as Africans we're not given that space to rest, or given that space to maybe reconcile or examine ourselves. I think your colleague, the director of Rivasari Mental Health Associates, Buledi, was saying that now if you rest, there's a perception of laziness, and it's like that isn't necessarily the case. Sometimes you need to rest to be okay, and that is okay.
Of course, absolutely. And how then, because I mean, in terms of our discussion also today is also about the access to health information and access to health services as well. And after you've done the internal work, after you've done the resting work, there still has to be a resolve that is formulated in terms of being able to empower you forward, being able to empower you and your partner forward, being able to empower you and your family forward. And in that sense, we really have to start to move into more and more community mental health interventions, because we understand the barriers, we understand the financial barrier, we understand the cultural, religious barrier, because again, we must come back to understanding that mental health in Black communities has also sought refuge in our spiritual centers, right? It has sought refuge in our religious and cultural leaders to give us a sense of direction, right? We know that if there's dispute maybe between neighbors, it will be resolved at the chief's place, or the chief's hands, or someone who is significant in the society or community who can assist us in terms of understanding how best to resolve. So when we look at that, it's to then look at expanding what would be good enough interventions to be able to now step into a place where there is full on access. Psychology has a long way to go in terms of access to healthcare, and conversations like this start to at least plant that seed to say that we don't have a role to play. The listener who's saying, yes, I really do like tuning into this radio station. They speak about a lot of mental health issues. They speak about us as a community from a place of great understanding. I can connect what the themes that they speak about I resonate with. From radio platforms, which are free access platforms, to moving into communities, to moving into schools, to moving into government policy and systems that still continue to prioritize our Black communities and mental health. We need to start looking at what are the barriers that stop us from now transitioning people to a place where they can find a place and find meaningful value for individual, couple, and family therapy.
I love that so much. And it just also reminds me back, or takes me back rather, to our conversation with Buledi, and she was talking about the initial practices or approaches to mental wellness as Africans was an inclusive space, a community-based space, and especially a holistic space. So the sentiments that you are sharing is that in terms of where we are now, perhaps it's better suited that, we go back to the beginning, we go back to the origins, and perhaps, the full circle of doing the things that our forefathers, our foremothers used to do.
Yeah.
If we implement that, because, in a way, not even in a way, that is, the westernized approach to psychology, the rhythm and making it more holistic experience and all that. That's what we used to do. So I think going back to our native, approaches and ways of doing the things we used to do as a people, I think it will be better suited.
Of course, absolutely. So again, what we want to try and strive for is an integration, right? It's an appreciation of our ways of life that are true to our form, and it's also an embracing of the transition in our understanding of what mental health is. So we need to find a place where these forms of understanding and perspective around mental health can find a collaboration, so that we can move forward in a meaningful manner, in a manner that regards history, in a manner that regards tradition and culture, but in a manner that also opens up to embracing what modern ways and forms of healing have to offer for us, and to try and see how best we take from each place to then form our own unique understanding of what holistic mental health looks like.
Thank you so much. My heart is so warm right now. I think more than anything, you've given me comfort just with the idea that it is definitely possible for millennials to share a space of intellect, of construct, of wanting to move forward in a transformative way, considering the past, considering the present, and especially taking into account, where we are going, So thank you so much for your conversation. I've learned so much. I think our listeners also have benefited so much from, your insights and your expertise. So thank you for your time, and, have an amazing day further. We'll see, you guys same time next week.
Thank you so much for this opportunity as well, Xolisa. And, in terms of just signing out, it's to continuously encourage people, our listeners, and also the people that they interact with, to really start to consider entering into formal therapy as well, or some kind of counseling and intervention that helps them. Let's not form a society that is so isolated, to be in community, but to be isolated is, I suppose, the greatest tragedy to humanity. Let's get to a point where we can use our resources, we can use social media, we can find out our nearest health centers, clinics, hospitals, and even therapists who are able to also engage us in a pro bono rate. Let's start initiatives within our communities, group initiatives. Let's say, we've identified this problem in our community. Let's bring in an expert, right? And we can collectively start to form some kind of week after week intervention together with that practitioner who will then come and address us in our 12-member forum, right? Let's really start to ask ourselves, how best can we serve our communities, and where can we lean into in terms of the appropriate expertise that can come in and ensure that they facilitate that collective healing, but that you know that you're not alone.
I love that. I love that. So thank you so much. As always, we'll definitely be sharing, your details. We'll be sharing the details of, Ribasadi Mental Health Associates. I love that you guys are, based on being accessible and putting people first, and especially serving the community. So I hope that everyone is listening and paying attention. Black mental health is definitely a goal, and it's definitely attainable, and we have qualified psychologists, qualified individuals that really care for your well-being, mentally and otherwise. So thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Keep well, and until next time, bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.